Welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome to the Verdict Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Verda. We're going to go on and do our Monday show like we do every single week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to be covering the Man and Passing Academy, what happened this weekend in good old Thibodaux, Louisiana, the LSU news that I have for you today, as well as the New Orleans Pelicans potential trades that they're going to make. And NBA offseason is kind of going wild. You know, you see all kind of moves, all kind of rumors, all kind of hypothesis on who's going to go where, why, and what team is going to be able to perform. So we'll break that down for you here today. I wanted to say, though, you know, the Man and Passing Academy, it took on legs of its own this year. You see on Twitter the content that we've been putting out from the Air It Out Challenge. A couple of quarterbacks have been getting some critiques in the chat. But it's, you know, it's all a part of the process. I love the Man and Passing Academy and the opportunities that it brings. You get a lot of good interviews. You get to see some workouts during the summer when you normally wouldn't. So we got a lot of exclusive information to break down today on this stream. We got Coco in the chat. Appreciate the help, man. And I wanted to shout out our guy Ben during the Man and Passing Academy. That's the most clutch man in the world. We wouldn't have had half of the stuff that we did without him. So I appreciate the help. Means a lot. But without further ado, let's get right into this MPA. We had interviews with Garrett Nussmeier, with Georgia's Carson Beck, with Oregon's Dillion Gabriel, and of course with the sheriff, Peyton. It was pretty cool, man. It's always good to pick people's brains, but the biggest thing that I enjoyed the most was getting that pulse check on the college football season that's rapidly approaching. I mean, we really don't have too much of a background on a Dillion Gabriel at Oregon. It's a new squad. It's a new team. Yeah, we know Dillion Gabriel, but we don't know why he went to Oregon. We don't know what went into that decision. So we got to learn a little bit about that. Carson Beck as well. We kind of, you know, championship mindsets I feel like are pretty important. This guy has been around the block as a starter. He's had a little bit of a difficulty getting back to the national championship, but that's all a part of the program. That's all a part of the process. And it was pretty cool to talk about the college football expansion with him as well. But Mr. Nussmeier, all I want to say is anybody worrying, anybody doubting, anybody thinking, oh man, we lost Jaden Daniels, it's going to be a decline. Guys, you got to understand what you've got with a Garrett Nussmeier. He is not your run-of-the-mill first-year starter. He's been in college football for 3 to 4 years. He's got an insane amount of experience. Plus, let's not forget the support system. Let's not forget Mr. Doug Nussmeier, who has coached the best of the best, who's playing on Sundays, who's been in the national championship. They have that pedigree in that family. And, I mean, look, you can even see it in his younger brother, Colton. This entire squad, I think, is pretty trustworthy. And also, I mean, Nuss talked about his confidence and his abilities. He also talked about how switching to the starting role really isn't overwhelming him and how, you know, he was itching to get back into this role since his freshman year. He noted he got a little bit of a taste of it. Ever since then, he's been, you know, looking to get back into the action, right back into the pocket. He also talked about, and I loved this. This was at the end of our interview. If you didn't see it, you can go ahead and check it out. I'll put a link up here in post. But Nussmeier said, LSU is the place to be if you want to get that NFL big money. The NIL money, sure, it's fine and dandy. It's short term and it might be good now. But in the grand scheme of things, when you could potentially be a Joe Burrow making $40, $50 million a year, a Justin Jefferson being the highest paid non-quarterback, it seems like all bets are off and you really don't want to focus on NIL. And I mean, Garrett Nussmeier also talked about just what LSU has at its arsenal, at its availability, between Jack Marucci and the virtual reality or just any type of technology that they are using to try to progress and move the game along and get their guys, you know, that much healthier, that much more in tune with their bodies and just being able to really understand the game as a whole. I feel like what I'm getting at is you're not looking at a Garrett Nussmeier who is just simply learning a new scheme, learning a new, playbook or what have you. The offensive coordinator is his positional coach. Joe Sloan has worked with Nussmeier for years. He knows what Nussmeier is capable of. He knows what Nussmeier needs around him. I feel like everyone's wondering, oh, well, Jaden Daniels. That's a completely different offense. It's a completely different amount of weapons around him. And I feel like, you know, it makes sense. You know, we've even seen it with Joe Burrow, and I kind of compared this when Jaden Daniels first walked in, and I feel like we're doing a 360. When you have a really good quarterback, sometimes fans or, you know, just people in general, they get a little, how do I say it? They kind of don't realize what they got. You know what I mean? You never appreciate what you got till it's gone type deal. And Joe Burrow was such a generational talent. And then when Jaden Daniels comes in, it took a little bit for Jaden to get his legs from under him, and people are just panicking. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? They're so used to Joe Burrow. They're so used to this and that. And that's that moment where you're like, oh, my God, we really need to appreciate this guy. With Jaden Daniels, we kind of tried to, nip that in the bud early on within the last couple of years. We thought Jaden would be able to hit the potential that he hit, to be the LSU's third Heisman, to be a first-round quarterback drafted. And I'm here to say, I feel the same way about Garrett Nussmeier. And yeah, you can call me Mr. Optimistic. Yeah, you can call me biased. I just, from what I've seen, as a completely, I'm going to say, objective football mind, I like Garrett Nussmeier's arm. I like his mindset. I like what he brings to the table and how the guys respond around him. At the workouts at the college showcase, Nussmeier brought pretty much the whole wide receiver room. You got Kyron Lacy, Chris Hilton Jr., Aaron Anderson, Xavier Thomas, and Kyle Parker running routes on Saturdays next to Peyton, next to Eli, getting that tutelage, getting that chemistry. It seems like these guys, if they're taking it serious, they're acting like professional quarterbacks, and of course, yeah, you want that at the college level. You expect that. But the fact that it's here, I'm going to pump the brakes on the Nussmeier slander and the Nussmeier suspect. I feel like it's not like, he's a younger guy who's just getting thrown in the mix. He has a veteran mind. He's been alongside multiple quarterbacks, multiple coaches, multiple schemes, multiple playbooks. He has a compiled, accumulated knowledge that I don't think many people have. You always want a veteran mind. You always want a veteran presence. You want somebody that has been around the block. You don't want someone who's getting thrown in the fire and, you're kind of wondering, oh, how are they going to handle it? I think if you had to find anything that you're going to put as a red flag on Nussmeier, it might potentially be, an interception here or there, or like you can dial it back to the Southern game. But those type of moments, it's few and far in between. Also, Garrett Nussmeier didn't have the opportunities that he's going to have this season. I mean, a backup coming in comparatively to a starter staying in is two different roles, two different amount of attempts, two different types of schemes. I mean, when Nussmeier got in last year, you saw a lot of runs. You didn't see as many passes. Did he get some? Of course. Phenomenal passes as well. I mean, he had, I believe, Malik Neighbors' longest touchdown reception of the whole season. But what I'm getting at is LSU's in a transitional period, much like they were a few years ago when Joe Burrow left LSU. And quite frankly, he did some things that we might not see again. 15-0 national championship. Insane amount of tough teams on that schedule that they defeated and ran right through. So it's you expect the fans to kind of be a little standoffish when a new guy comes in. But I feel like in this situation, I'm going to trust the process. I'm not going to be the skeptic. I'm not going to be the critic, especially in the offseason. We haven't seen week one. We haven't seen Vegas. We haven't seen USC. From what I've seen from Nussmeier, the workouts, even the chemistry that they're building, they look all in tune. I mean, yeah, they're running post routes. There's not DBs, and you might have one or two overthrows. But all in all, I like that they're putting in reps when they don't have to, especially in this world of college football. You don't really see things like this. People all meeting 2 hours away in a completely different city during the offseason. It's an optional workout. You've got 5 wide receivers over there. You're starting quarterback. And quite frankly, I feel like, that was their opportunity to really show everybody, like, we're bought in. This is what you're going to see this season. And I mean, that's why I enjoyed putting the content out. It's really cool to be able to see Kyron Lacy in a wide receiver one role. I feel like another thing, we're talking about skepticism on Nussmeier. Let's talk about the skepticism on Kyron Lacy. He's not a horrible wide receiver. Matter of fact, he could arguably be one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. And it's not just because he's going to have a Garrett Nussmeier behind center for him. And it's not just because he'll have a Joe Sloan in the booth. It's because Kyron Lacy has a intangible thing that you simply cannot teach. And what is that? It's that dog in you. I think Kyron Lacy understands that the pressure, the moment, all of the lights are at its brightest. This is his year. This is his moment. Plus, last season, 2 of his best friends had the same situation. They achieved it. They conquered it. They, got the opportunity, and now they're in the NFL making a hell of a lot of money. Coach Cortez Hankton sees the same exact potential in Kyron Lacy. And I think the only thing you needed was Kyron Lacy to just take the plan, stick to it, and be consistent. Throughout these last few years, you've seen it. Throughout this year, this offseason, I think you'll be completely shocked. Has Kyron Lacy had moments where he's dropped the ball? Of course. Who hasn't? It's football. I think, though, this season, when you have more targets, when you have more trust, Kyron Lacy is going to shock the world. Who else? Chris Hilton Jr. I can't stress enough how fast Chris Hilton Jr. is. We posted that little clip and we captioned it, the fastest wide receiver LSU might have seen, and a couple people probably cocking an eyebrow. Like, what are you talking about? Fastest wide receiver ever? Do you know who LSU has? Yeah, I do. And I think Mr. 22-mile-per-hour Chris Hilton Jr. is going to be blazing all over the gridiron all season long. That's going to be a name that a lot of people will never forget when this season's all said and done. Last but not least, Aaron Anderson. I mean, I've been riding the Aaron Anderson hype train all offseason long. A lot of people are telling me, hey, Aaron Anderson's going to transfer. Aaron Anderson ain't going to get his opportunity. Well, guess what? It looks like Aaron Anderson is going to fit into that wide receiver 3 spot. It looks like he is 100% healthy. He's 100% one of those weapons that you're going to have to pay attention to, because you don't just put him in the slot. You don't just have him catch balls in the open field. You could put him in the backfield. You can do some screen passes. You can utilize Aaron Anderson, because of his size, a lot differently than you can utilize other wide receivers. So I did want to point out, the minicamp made me juiced for LSU football season going forward. Not just because Nussmeier was looking good, not just because we saw the wide receivers gaining chemistry and everyone on the same page, but just because I enjoyed the fact that these guys are all, meeting together on an involuntary workout. It's pretty cool. Moving on, Carson Beck. We talked to the Georgia quarterback, and first things first is Kirby Smart, of course. We talked about it the other day. The best coach of college football, probably. I'll give him the nod, I guess. All right. Elite coaches. We'll throw Kirby at the top. Mount Rushmore. Let's go. Don't forget BK, though. Brian Kelly's elite. I'm sorry. But Carson Beck talked a little bit about that legacy, talked a little bit about that Kirby Smart pedigree, talked a little bit also about the development, because I mentioned, hey, man, Georgia, they've been developing a lot of NFL talent. Y'all are almost NFL U. And I'm saying this as, an LSU personality. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Georgia, been performing very well throughout the last few years. And why? It's a mindset thing. I always talk about mindset, and I feel like it's 75% of the game. But Carson Beck said, just because it's a 12-man playoff doesn't mean you're more comfortable. Doesn't mean, you don't want to shift that mindset from a college football 4-team playoff. He's saying if you get a little more comfortable, a little more lax, a little more, we got it. We can get a loss. We can get 2 losses. It might bite you. It might come back to haunt you. You still need to have that dog in you. You still got to act like it's a 4-man playoff. You know what I mean? Being a top 4 seed puts you in a home field advantage situation, potentially. I'm confused on how these 6 weeks of college football playoffs are going to go. But like I said, he's saying you aim for the top seeds, and you don't really want to pull back and be like, we got 12 spots. You know what I'm saying? We can rest somebody. We can try to get our squad going forward. No, he's saying you really got to take every single opportunity you can get, because you really don't know what's going to happen in college football. It's any given Saturday. Last but not least, talked about the development at Georgia and how guys like Ladd McConkey are hitting the ground running. I mean, they talk about Ladd McConkey being like a veteran wide receiver in Los Angeles already. And boy, do the Chargers need it, because they don't have Mike Williams. They don't have Keenan Allen anymore. I mean, hell, they don't have Austin Eckler. So Ladd McConkey is kind of like, their shining piece right now. Talked to him a little bit about that, and he was just mentioning, Kirby Smart and just that overall mindset, like we just said. You don't want to be complacent. You don't want to be pushing the goals and the expectations. You got to be the number 1 all the time. You can't be worrying about being a number 12, a number 10, a number 8, a number 7. It's number 1 or bust. And that mindset could go one of 2 ways for people. But Georgia, I feel like, is kind of stepping into that role that Alabama was in the last few years. It's going to be interesting to see if they can handle it this year. I really don't know how deep Georgia is going to get. Are they going to be an SEC favorite? More than likely. But I think teams like LSU, potentially, a Texas, maybe an Alabama, Ole Miss maybe. I mean, there's a couple of moments where you could really hold your breath if you're trying to predict who's going to be at the top of the SEC. So, Carson Beck, really good dude. It was cool to meet him, cool to talk with him a little bit. Also saw him in the Air It Out Challenge as well. We'll have more of those highlights pumping out all week. So stay tuned on the Verdant Verdict socials. Dillion Gabriel from Oregon. We've talked about him a lot. Last stream we did a little Heisman prediction, a little Heisman favorite, this or that, who's a real candidate, who's not. And we kind of concluded, both me and G, that Dillion Gabriel is a very, very good athlete, very, very probable to be in New York City when that Heisman Award is being divvied out. But we talked to him a little bit about his goals, talked to him a little bit about what made him transfer from Oklahoma to Oregon. And all in all, of course, you get the usual. Coach Lanning is, phenomenal. He's got a great culture. He's got a championship program. Plus, Oregon has some insane uniforms. Being so close to the Nike headquarters, you're going to get a little bit of swag that not a lot of people are going to be able to get. So, the Oregon program as a whole, they are focused on one thing and one thing only. It's a national championship. Of course, every single program is going to say that. But I think if you're looking at a school outside the SEC, it's Ohio State, Oregon, and you might have one other school that can really contend for a ring. I think you got a few. Most of your guys are top SEC dogs, but all in all, you're going to have to pay attention to Dillion Gabriel this season. Last but not least, Peyton Manning, the sheriff. Always cool to talk to a legend. He talked about a couple of interesting topics. I brought up the toughest environment in college football because, College Football 25 and EA Sports did something odd. They put LSU at number 3. They put A&M at number 1. It puzzled everybody. That was one of the trending topics. We had asked a lot of quarterbacks that same question. But Peyton Manning gave us his expected response. He shouted out Tennessee and Nayland. And, of course, he went through the usuals, whether it be the Swamp or whether it be, Jordan Hare with Auburn. And, of course, he did mention a little bit of LSU, but I always think it's funny to ask that question because it's a little bit different for some people. Some players are going to use it as like, these are the toughest environments I've played in. Because not everybody has been in an environment, and I respect that. So I think, the EA Sports toughest environment list might need to be worked on. Maybe they should call Peyton Manning for it next year. Moving on to the Air It Out Challenge. What is the Air It Out Challenge, you ask? Well, on the Friday of the Manning Passing Academy, they put all of the college quarterbacks at the 50-yard line, and they let them throw to some of the wide receiver prospects at the camp. They do a little bit of a challenge where they're trying to hit golf carts. They're trying to hit moving, tackling dummies. They're trying to throw it in a bucket 55 yards away in the corner of an end zone. And then to end it all off, they do the long shot challenge, and they try to throw a football through a basketball hoop. The Air It Out Challenge got a couple of people riled up, I will admit. First things first, it looked like people hated Jackson Dart's throwing. I get it. Look, that was a situation where you're on the field, you're putting out the content, live reporting. And I always say in sports, you got highlights, you got lowlights. Not everything is a perfect peachy cream moment. And I think, the dart throw wasn't horrible. He's moving out of the pocket. He's running. He's letting one rip. Did it go in the bucket? No. It was a few yards off. But let's pretend that you got a live wide receiver under it. Would he be able to correct? Would he be able to adjust? Who knows? I'm not going to throw Mr. Dart under the bus like most of the people on Twitter, but I get where you're coming from. I understand. I feel like, that camp, though, that Air It Out moment specifically, it's fun for the public. It's entertainment. It's not really indicative on how good these guys are. You know what I'm saying? They're having fun. Are they taking it serious? Of course. But what I'm getting at is, does this mean Jackson Dart is going to have a horrible season? Not by any stretch of the imagination. He's still a very mobile guy. He learned a lot from the Mannings. And plus, this experience for him, I bet he's going to have this one, sticking in the back of his head. Also, I want to say Riley Leonard impressed me. He was at Duke last year. He's at Notre Dame this year. I'll say that's the third school outside the SEC that I'll give respect to in terms of a potential national championship. I'll go Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame in that order. I know Notre Dame's kind of a touchy subject, but with the projected rankings, and this is way too early, but with the projected rankings of the college football playoff, they got a potential LSU and Notre Dame matchup, and that would break the internet. That would break the internet. The rankings that college football playoff has, the college football video game, 25, if you looked at their top 12 in terms of overalls, if you did the seeding, LSU would line up with Notre Dame according to what they're saying. Hey, hopefully that's not something that would not go in our favor. I think Brian Kelly versus Notre Dame would be a huge huge rivalry. I feel like it would draw a lot of attention. It'd probably be one of the most watched college football playoff games in recent memory. It'll be pretty cool. Let's move on. One more thing, College Showcase. We talked about it a little bit earlier with the workouts and whatnot. But all in all, the thing that I liked watching Kyron Lacey get active and constantly look for Nussmeier. They had a little line, what they were doing. They had like 5 quarterbacks, 5 wide receivers. And, the line would get mixed up every now and then. And Kyron Lacey was always looking for Nuss, always trying to, whenever Nuss was next, he's like, oh, well, let me get right there. I love that attitude. I love the fact that he's trying to catch as many balls from his quarterback as possible. That duo looks sharp. Plus, we mentioned Chris Hilton. You cannot forget about Chris Hilton. You cannot sleep on him. He's in the same boat as a Brian Thomas Jr. last year. Your wide receiver 2 does not need to be underrated and slept on and underappreciated. Your wide receiver 2 is probably going to be one of your bigger targets as well. I mean, LSU, let's even dial it back the year before last year when Kayshon Boutte was here as wide receiver 1 and Malik Neighbors was the wide receiver 2 going crazy. Wide receiver 2s sometimes get a little bit easier situation because they don't have all the attention. They don't have the double teams, the schemes, the primary routes, this, that, the third. You might be able to utilize him. He's going to be that big vertical threat, speedy, running all over the place. You can't teach speed, bro. You can't teach 22 miles per hour. I mean, dude, Chris Hilton could run in a residential neighborhood and almost get a ticket. It's awesome. I think that we're going to have to pay a lot of attention to him all season long. But let's move on to some more LSU news. I want y'all to hit the like button on the stream for me if you're enjoying the show. I appreciate everybody watching. We're going to go live every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday at 11 a.m. We're keeping it going all summer long. LSU women's basketball news. Yesterday, Angel Reese sets a WNBA record, 10 straight double-doubles. It's never happened before. One, I'm wondering how long this streak's going to go because she had a hell of a lot of double-doubles at LSU. She can go 20 games in a row with a double-double if you ask me. But this is also very cool because, you've been seeing, we talk about scrutiny all the time here on the show, but you've been seeing the scrutiny Angel Reese is going through on Twitter. People saying it's just a Caitlin Clark league. People saying she's not doing well. Well, now you have activated the beast inside Angel Reese, and I feel like that competitive fire that she possesses is going to be why, she's getting to where she's at right now. Everybody wants to know also, we're going to change gears, New Orleans Pelicans. What is going on? Real quick, before we get into that, I want to let y'all know about Happy Dad. Our guys, Happy Dad, now in Louisiana for the summer. If you ask me, best taste and hard seltzer tea, low in sugar, gluten-free. Also, no added flavors. You can get this in Louisiana at Albertsons, at Rouse's, at Walmart. Just a time for the summer. Thank you, Happy Dad, for joining the squad. Got the merch repping. Got the case sitting here next to me, our Death Row record version. You can look in the description, www.happydad.com. You can shop on the website. But like I said, Albertsons, Rouse's, Walmart, go get your Happy Dad in store while you still can. Just dropped in Louisiana. Best seltzer on the market. Thank you, guys. Now, let's move into the Pelicans trade talks. They got a huge move. They got DeJounte Murray. And whenever I seen that notification pop across my phone, the first thing I said was, oh my God, you've got to keep Brandon Ingram. Now look, I could be jumping the gun. I could be wrong. But let's dive into this DeJounte Murray trade a little bit. They gave away Dyson Daniels, they gave away Larry Nance, and they gave away 2 first-round picks, 2025, 2027. Another thing that we have to monitor with this DeJounte Murray situation is they almost got Trae Young. The Hawks had to make a decision. What guard, what scoring, ball-dominant, insanely young, talented, and probably star of the league in the future. I feel like Trae Young star of the league now. But DeJounte Murray could be a star in New Orleans. They had to pick. What one are we going to lose? And I think they made the right decision because Trae Young, in my opinion, is better than DeJounte Murray. He does have a higher ceiling. He can probably be more of a value. But the Pelicans still get an improvement. The Pelicans still are in a situation now where they crossed a need. Yeah, you had a C.J. McCollum, you have Jose Alvarado, you have a couple guys that you can use as a ball-dominant guard last year. You don't have DeJounte Murray, who could potentially drop 25, 30. I mean, you even see him every now and then drop a 40-point game. That would be insane. Will he still be able to do the 40-pointers in New Orleans alongside a CJ, a Zion, a B.I.? Probably not, but you don't need it. You don't need 40 from him. You might need an extra 20. Look at how many close games the Pelicans had or how many rough moments that Brandon Ingram had. If you had somebody else to facilitate that shooting, that scoring, that offensive load, it might make it a little bit easier. Also, I do have to say, Brandon Ingram, man, I don't know, though. It's like is this too far gone with the trade talks? He wants the max contract. They don't think that they want to give it to him just because of the trade value. They don't think, and I'm not saying they don't think Brandon Ingram's good enough for a max contract. What I'm saying is they've got Zion Williamson on one. They can't put Brandon Ingram on one because now you've invested in that duo long term, and that duo is potentially not going to be able to get through the playoffs. So what you're going to have to do if you're the New Orleans Pelicans is you're going to have to look more than likely at the Sacramento Kings, at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Do not look at the Houston Rockets. Please do not. But you're going to have to probably move Brandon Ingram. I would like to see him stay with DeJounte Murray just to kind of know what they're capable of. But the problem is the only way Brandon Ingram will stay is if they give him that max deal and if they push all the chips in. And if DeJounte Murray isn't enough, well, you kind of shot yourself in the foot because there goes Brandon Ingram's trade value. Now you don't have as much leverage as you once had. The Pelicans are in an interesting situation right now. Drop your predictions in the chat, what you think is going to happen. Is Brandon Ingram going to be on the Pelicans next season? Should he be traded? What's going on here in New Orleans? Right now, the squad they got, DeJounte, Brandon, Zion, CJ, you still got Trey Murphy, you got Herb, you got Ivy Mozzie. I don't know if they're keeping Valanciunas. Pretty sure he's a free agent. You got a lot of pieces that you're going to be able to pursue. Not to mention, and this is an oddball one, but Paul George is going to be a free agent. Klay Thompson is probably going to get traded. There's pieces that you can move. There's something out there if you really, really, really want it. I think the NBA is going to shake up a lot. It's going to shake up a lot. It'll be interesting. We'll keep up with the Pelicans news as it comes in. Last segment of the show was the Shama segment, if you will. UFC 303. It was supposed to be McGregor and Chandler. Alex Pereira and Yuri step in at last second to get that rematch going. And boy, oh boy, was it a hell of a fight. Yuri got knocked out in the first round. Herb Dean thankfully let it go into the second round. And within 15 seconds, Yuri is out. So you're like, wow, was he even, ready to fight after that first knockdown? Should Herb Dean have stopped the fight? Is Yuri going to be able to be an elite fighter at that division? Because Yuri's saying, I'm going to have to evolve or I'm going to have to not fight. That was his first reaction. Either I'm going to get better or I'm done. And I feel like Yuri is right there. If you wanted to talk about all the hype before the fight, it was hype because we didn't know exactly how it would go. We thought Shama would win, and we think Alex Pereira is one of the best fighters that the UFC's ever had the privilege of signing. But Yuri Prochazka can have that one-strike power. He can really catch you lacking in one moment, and all it takes is a punch. It's a puncher's chance here in boxing, in the UFC, and any combat sport in general. Hell, on Power Slap now, too. You get a slapper's chance, but I think Alex Pereira has some decisions to make on his own as well. After the fight, he kind of talked about, hey, do I go to heavyweight? I feel like this is a situation where I can accomplish something nobody else has done. Be a 3-division champ. Go from middleweight to light heavyweight to heavyweight and just completely take all of the top dogs off the map. Speaking of top dogs, though, the UFC GOAT, Jon Jones, had something to say about this. He reacted. He said he'd give Alex Pereira a chance. Jon Jones said, I would potentially fight Shama if he beats Tom Aspinall. If Shama beats Tom Aspinall, I will be Jon Jones' advocate and say, do not sign that contract. Because nobody wants to see Jon Jones flat on his back to end his career. Both of the guys are going to be similar in age. And Jon Jones is more than likely going to try to get that grappling out of Alex Pereira. But I really, really hope that Alex, with his new black belt from Glover Teixeira, hasn't learned enough to keep it standing up for just enough time. He needs one round. Hell, he needs one punch. He's so calculated and smart, and I always say, it's a sweet science. It's not raw savagery. Before the fight, he was watching film on Yuri. Like, oh, man, look at the way he's checking his leg kicks. Look at the way he's dropping his hands. When I go to kick low, I'll do a little fake, kick him in the head. Go replay that knockout and watch how Yuri got knocked out. It was a head kick. I think Alex Pereira is one of your smartest, calculated fighters that the UFC's seen in a while. And I'd be worried to take that fight if I was a UFC legend who's already proven enough in my career. But that's enough of the UFC for me. I'm going to wrap this show up. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please hit the like button before you hop out. Remember, shows every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday. We're going live at 11 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Got more NPA content coming. We're going to post a Quinn Ayers interview. Quinn Ayers from Texas. He'll be up on the channel. Graham Mertz from Florida, we got an interview with him. He'll be up on the channel. We got some more air it out highlights, the workout highlights between Nuss and Kyron and Chris and all of that. We got it all coming for you on the YouTube channel this week. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss those uploads. And last but not least, there's a big interview on the way. And I don't want to drop the name. I don't want to have y'all already knowing. I can't rip the Band-Aid off yet. But stay tuned this week. Big interview coming. Big things coming, quite frankly, for the Verdant Verdict. I want to thank our guys at Happy Dad again. It's been a hell of a run. Verdant Verdict's taking over, though, guys. Y'all have a good one. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Happy Dad, for joining the squad. Enjoy y'all day.